Whatever happened to Minnehaha? This is a story based on recollections of historical events that took place sometime between 1861 and 1876. That period of time when many Coos Bay and Loremquah people were forcibly removed and held at the LC Sub Agency at Yachats on Oregon's central coast. At some time during those years, a Hanis Coos woman disappeared. Unfortunately, we know very little about this woman before her disappearance, and even less afterwards. In part because the people who told the stories of her disappearance did not agree on all of the details. The revolving door of Indian agents at Yachats did not keep detailed records. The disappearance of this unfortunate woman were recalled decades after the events by a Hanis man, Jim Buchanan, and his younger friend, Frank Drew, and also Annie Miner Peterson. All three spent part of their lives at Yachats. Of the three, Jim Buchanan was the eldest. They said that one of this woman's nicknames was K'atli'is, a name that means, literally, without language. They say her ability to speak was limited. She was almost certainly profoundly hard of hearing. She came from one of the empire villages, Ntsa'ich. She was married to a man from the same village who was nicknamed Wenq, which means to weave. In 1856, she gained a new nickname, Minnehaha, just like the character in the Longfellow poem. You may be wondering how a Coos Bay woman got that nickname. Many Native people were given English names or anglicized versions of Native names at the hands of soldiers and Indian agents when Coos and Loremquah people were being rounded up for removal to Fort Umpqua in 1856. Annie Miner Peterson's niece, Lottie Evanoff, said that when the Coos Bay people were gathered up at the point just south of Empire, known as Kiwa'at in Hanis, or Quawau in Milik, that people were given these names. Lottie said, "One was dubbed by white soldiers who got out a name as Kiss My Ass, and the Indian man thought this was his real name until later whites disillusioned him." In comparison, Minnehaha got off lucky in her naming. She and her husband were among those forced to move from Coos Bay, first up to Fort Umpqua and then Yachats. The stories surrounding her disappearance vary a bit, but one thing they do all agree on: Minnehaha disappeared one day, never to be seen again. Jim Buchanan, who is the oldest informant, would have been a teen or young adult when she disappeared, probably has the most accurate version. He said she got lost after an elk hunt led by Jim Tai. They were coming back from the forest when she disappeared. There was a search, but she was not found. People began to gossip that she had become an Ashen. Ashen generally means a spooky person or wild being of the woods. Ashen are those who forgot that they were human and live alone deep in the forest. These beings are feared, as it was said meeting one could cause madness. Frank Drew, who probably heard the story from his friend Jim, said her disappearance had happened before his time. He said she was with some girls picking berries near Tequimas, which is Star Creek, just north of Yachats. Annie Peterson, born in 1860, was just a few years older than Drew, but about a decade or so younger than Jim. She agreed with Jim Buchanan's account that she disappeared after a man killed an elk somewhere in the woods near Yachats. Many people went out to pack the elk back, including Minnehaha. Annie said after Minnehaha went missing, the people searched for a week. They found her tracks and found pieces of her dress on some brush, but they never found her. Annie said people thought she'd become an Ashen. So what really did happen to Minnehaha? Whether she disappeared berry picking or packing elk out in the 1860s or around 1870, there were very few people near Yachats. The only residents were the native people and a very small agency staff. Soldiers, such as those from Fort Yamhill, only came through occasionally, and there was also the very occasional visitor, such as surveyor, that passed through. The land around Yachats was rough, and still is rough. Steep cliffs around Hulk Hike, Cape Perpetua, the rough shoreline, steep hills and dense woods to the east mean that there are plenty of places where one could meet with an accident and be difficult to find. And apparently being hearing impaired, she would not have heard people calling for her, and she may not have been able to make herself verbally understood. However, both men and women were trained from a young age to be able to read tracks. If Minnehaha ran away or got lost, or fell and got hurt, the Coos and Lorumko people at Yachats should have been able to track her fairly easily, and according to Annie's account, they tried and failed. Why couldn't they find her? One possibility is she was kidnapped. One possibility, as I mentioned before, is that she could have been kidnapped. However, if she had been, the people tracking her should have been able to see some signs, such as another set of tracks. But there is no mention of other tracks associated with Minnehaha's. She could have become injured. While separated from the rest of the party, she could have slipped and fallen. As I mentioned, there are some very steep slopes around Yachats, and the seas are rough. If she met with an accident, her body could very easily have gone undiscovered. Some 160 years on, we will never truly know what happened to poor lost K'atli'is, Minnehaha, but we can remember her and the others who endured the tough starvation years at the LC subagency at Yachats.